Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Sunday video. We're looking at a little bit of recent history, this time looking at the Motor City Rockers, exactly what happened. They're currently an inactive franchise. Why is that? What happened? We'll hit the highlights here and give you a little bit of background, too, to go with this. So the Motor City Rockers was a team that had been planned for a while. Back in 2018, 2019, the league became quite aggressive as far as their expansion plans. For many years, the team, there had only been like 6 or 7 teams in the league each season. And the goal was to get to 10 franchises by the 10th season, which would be the 2019 to 2020 season. All right. Unfortunately, we know what happened during that season, and that kind of threw things into a very complicated blender. But anyway, the Motor City Rockers were planned during this time of expansion. The FPHL announced an expansion team was going to be given to Detroit area, Motor City. Adam Steele, who, if you recognize that name, for those of you who are a little more well-versed with your Fed history, you know he was the guy running the show with Battle Creek with the Rumblebees. And we all know how that went. I don't think that was necessarily a reflection on Adam Steele himself, but it didn't help matters. So anyway, Steele was the head of the Rockers at this time. Okay, the franchise is approved on July 16th of 2020. Now, this was after we had the COVID season that had been shut down, had shut down everything, and we didn't have a champion and all that. All right, and this was a good thing for Adam Steele because it was very obvious by the time we got to the time that COVID hit during the pandemic, that the Rumblebees were not going to last. So now Steele was able to shift his focus from the Rumblebees to the Rockers. All right, on August 11th of 2020, when there was still hope that, you know, maybe we can play next season, and we really didn't know what was going on, what was going to happen, the opening press conference for the team took place, and Khalil Thomas is announced as head coach. A lot of you going, who? I had to look it up. He was an assistant coach for the Greenville Swamp Rabbits of the ECHL the previous 2 seasons, really seen as an up-and-coming coach. And that was after a pretty good playing career across different leagues, the IHL, the CHL, even a few games in the AHL. All right. Obviously, that didn't pan out. Thomas never coached a game. As a matter of fact, he is now coaching a AAA underage program in California. But anyway, so that happened. The delay of COVID, again, kind of put everything on hold. Once it became known that there wasn't going to be a traditional 2020 to 2021 season, the plans were put on hold. So basically, the Rockers kind of went into hiatus. So this dormancy that they're experiencing now is almost nothing new. Okay, so April 29th of 2022, Nick Field, who is now the guy who's in charge of hockey decisions and hockey operations, announces the team's being revived. They participated in the expansion draft. They named Gordie Brown as, I almost said Gordie Howe. They named Gordie Brown as their head coach, and the team was ready to go. At this point, the owner also owned Big Boy Arena, where the Rockers were going to be playing. So, conflict of interest, and that would come into play later down the road. All right, so that first year, the Rockers had a good team. They had people like Scotty Koash, Declan Conway, Brad Ryder, Dante Suffredini. He was one of my favorites that season. Jack Colton. In goal, they had Trevor Babin and Scott Blake, excuse me. And they signed some guy named Travis Ridgen for a little bit of publicity. I'm sure it helped to a degree, but nonetheless. The team finished 32-18-6. That's good for 97 points, and that was third in the Continental Division. That first year, both Port Huron and Motor City were in the Continental Division, along with Columbus and Carolina, and who was the other team? I forget. But anyway, so it's early in the morning. So the team did well. They lost 2 games to none in the first round of the playoffs to the Columbus River Dragons that year. It was a 2-1 loss, which Babin played very well, and then the second game they just got blown out 7-2. Money was very tight, though. There were a lot of financial obligations that went under the table and didn't get addressed, to the point where eventually there was a 6-figure deficit. Yeah, over $100,000 worth of money owed to different people, different organizations. So things financially were not good at this point in time. The attendance, team only drew 951. Of course, Big Boy Arena seats 3,400. Or 3,200. So obviously the goal was, we've got to improve our marketing, but there wasn't a lot of money for that. We've got to improve our product. The on-ice product was good, but as far as operational things, the team wanted to do upgrades and they couldn't afford to. We get to the second season, and this was a weird season for the Rockers. They started off the season in the Continental Division, along with Port Huron. After a fantastic start, the team was off to a 9-0-3 start. The team petitioned the league to get moved to the Empire Division because they saw that it would be better for travel. Well, yes, but at the same time, it didn't really make a lot of sense to make this move because the schedule had already been made. We're 12 games into the season already. The schedule wasn't going to be altered. The only thing that was really altered was the Rockers were now hopefully in a division which they had a better chance at maybe winning the division. All right, both Motor City and Binghamton got off to really hot starts this year. For a while, though, Rockers were in first place, 9-0-3, like I said. So then they get moved mid-season to the Empire Division. So kind of a strange thing. So the travel costs are cited, but again, it really didn't make any sense, except for the hope was, hey, we can maybe get a better seeing in the playoffs. All right, so Port Huron continues on in the Continental Division. So you had 2 teams 46 miles apart from each other and in 2 different divisions. So it was very strange. Kind of like Blue Ridge and Carolina for this upcoming season. But anyway, I digress. All right, the team continues to lose money. There's some ownership changes. The minority ownership changed a little bit. Um, and things were really sketchy. There's not a whole lot of information on the ownership other than what the team issued in the statement in which they announced their dormancy. There wasn't a lot of transparency as far as who exactly was running the show. To the average fan, to people like you and me, we had no idea who was running the show behind the scenes. And that was a problem. Not because of us, but because there really wasn't any transparency. All right. The team in the second season finished a little bit better. Well, same amount of points, 97 points, but they had a record of 33, 19, and 4. And they get to the second round with guys like Koash. Once again, they had TJ Delaney, TJ Sneath, Jonathan Giuliano. They had Colton and Jamison Milan on the back end. And you had Rico Gonzalez teaming up with Babin in the pipes. So the team was very, very good. They defeated Danbury 2-1. Now, Danbury had been kind of favored going into that series, and the Rockers got by him. And that set up a meeting with Binghamton. Binghamton ends up winning 2-0, 1-goal games, both games. So the team didn't play poorly. They lost on a really wicked sharp angle shot in overtime. And but yeah, so it was a disappointing end to the season, but things were looking up on the outside. On the inside, everything was a mess. We go into the off season from this previous off season, and there's a lot of discussion in the inside circles. Are the Rockers going to field a team this next year? Things were not going well. The team continued to hemorrhage money, continued to try and figure out how they could improve their operations, their daily operations, without breaking the bank. And then there was also a lot of discord in the front office, in the locker room, not amongst the players so much, but between arena management, the team ownership, and the actual on-the-ice hockey operations. So Gordy Brown resigns. He takes another job that wasn't even involving hockey. Doing very well, I hear, by the way. The players start to bolt. They said, we're not going to play for Motor City next year. Many did not return to the ice. Some just retired. Like Jonathan Giuliano had hinted at retirement during their second season anyway. A lot of players leaving. Danny Vanderweel, who was the captain, didn't want to play for the current organization. So the team almost folded. And so the league figured out ways to try and prop up the team to get them in because they were already on the schedule. There was a second schedule that was held off to the side just in case. There was a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. Scott Brand, essentially, he saved the franchise and made it possible for the team to take the ice by selling a record number of corporate sponsorships and getting corporate money in. And that basically allowed the team to pay off some of its debt and to field a team. Now, a new coach is hired, and everyone's eyebrows go up. It's a man named Steve Shannon. Shannon was hired despite the fact that about 10 years earlier, I guess it was longer actually, when he was a coach of the Motor City Mechanics of the UHL, he was basically kicked out of the league for telling his players to put bounties on certain opposing players. Fans didn't like it who knew what was going on, who knew the background story. The players didn't like it. The players basically stopped playing. And the team got off to a very rocky start. 3-7 in their first 10 games. So the organization sees, well, this isn't going to work out. Shannon is very quietly removed, and Jameson Milan is announced as a player coach. So that would continue the rest of the season. Now, for the locker room, that was a great move. That really helped the players kind of solidify and rally together and reunite. And Milan was a big part of that happening. But in the meantime, the money kept going out. I forgot to mention, the attendance was only 10-16 in the second season. So there really wasn't that much of an increase of fans. That was the primary problem. You don't have butts in the seat. You don't have income. You do have corporate sponsorships, which again, thanks to Scott Brand, the team had, but the fans weren't coming in. Still not coming in. And I mean, it's a hard sell. When you have an organization as iconic as the Detroit Red Wings playing just a few miles away, people are going to opt to see the Red Wings, not the Rockers. So marketing continued to be a struggle. Promotion, kind of a struggle. Although there were good responses to the people who came to the games for the different events, the different theme nights. The team was doing what it could, but there just wasn't the influx of fans that they were hoping for. All right, so the team really struggles on the ice. They're only averaging 2.3 goals scored per game, and they're allowing over 50 shots per game. Rico Gonzalez, who was playing the bulk of the games due to an injury to Trevor Babin, was just getting shell-shocked. The defense wasn't defensing. It just wasn't really that good, and the fans began to wonder what's going on. Why are we struggling this year? We had a really good setup for 2 years. Are we going to make the playoffs? There was some doubt. There was some doubt for a long time. All right. So, changes come. January 6th, it's announced that Bearcat Hockey, which is a nationwide youth organization, I use the air quotes because they're really only supplanted in 3 metro areas. But the greater Detroit area was one of them. They announced, we're buying the team. And everyone thinks, first reaction, oh, good. The team's been struggling. Yeah, the team almost folded again in mid-season. So this was seen initially as a good move. Bearcat made an on-the-cheap offer, and the team accepted. And the league initially said, okay, good. The very first press conference is given by Bearcat. They announced, well, the final game of the season, the Rockers' name and colors and uniforms and all that is going to be changed. We're going to rebrand for the last game of the season, which people did not take kindly to. The Rockers, I think the Rockers' branding and logo is fantastic, and most people agree with that. Fans said, no, you're not making any changes. So Bearcat the next day retracts and said, okay, we're going to keep the Rockers' name, logo, colors, but we have big changes in mind, in store for next year. And then suddenly, 4 days later, you don't hear anything else about Bearcat Hockey. Instead, it turns out that the sale was vetoed because as the vetting process went underway, and there's now a vetting process thanks to Pat Manning in Hudson Valley with that debacle, It's decided Bearcat can't sustain this. There's no way. So the league vetoes the sale. So January 24th, fortunately, a new person comes forward. Ken Andrews, a local businessman, steps forward and makes the purchase. And this time, everything is vetted properly. He said, yeah, Andrews can carry this team into the future. There's a plan. There's capital. We're looking good. So he comes in as owner. Now, before that happened, Scott Brand was summarily dismissed by the previous ownership, and that was just a real head scratcher. Crazy for a guy who basically, again, saved the franchise and allowed it to exist for this season. For him to be dismissed was very odd. And just started to reveal the problems that were going on behind the scenes. People were starting to now see what was behind the curtain. All right. The team finishes 19-32-5, 56 points. They did manage to make the playoffs. They played the play-in game against Watertown, lost 4-2. Attendance for the year, 1,009. It went down just a drop. The hope is there, though. The hope is with Nick Field coming in as back in as GM, and Ken Andrews being the owner. Things were looking good, except when it all went down, as the team began to negotiate with Big Boy Arena to extend the lease. Initially, things looked good. Now, the problem is that the ownership or the management of the arena was the former owner of the Rockers. And I don't know if there was some sour grapes involved, but anyway, things don't go well. There's one good meeting, and then suddenly, a few days later, on April 19th, Big Boy Arena said, "We want you out. Get out," to the team. So, in a statement on May 7th, the team released a very lengthy statement, and I'm going to read a segment of this. Following the conclusion of our season, we attempted to move forward as previously agreed, finalizing the rink manager's exit from the team and negotiating a new lease. So they thought the old owner was going to be gone completely. These steps were part of a written interim agreement that outlined the intention to complete an operating plan for the following season and required both parties to negotiate in good faith. However, in a meeting held on April 16th, that agreement was disregarded when we were told that there was no path forward, and we were asked to vacate the building as soon as possible. This was an abrupt reversal from assurances that just 3 days earlier, when we were told that the rink absolutely wanted the Rockers to remain at Big Boy Arena. At the same meeting, the rink manager stated that he was stepping away from the team. Based on the circumstances and our discussions at that time, it was our understanding that he was relinquishing any involvement or claims related to the team moving forward. In the weeks that followed, we made multiple good faith attempts to formalize a resolution that would allow both sides to move forward clearly. We submitted a detailed proposal outlining a fair and complete separation, including the assumption of team liabilities and a full release of all claims. In other words, they were talking money. After considerable delay, we received a minimal written response that declined to engage further on those terms. At this point, it became clear that no workable resolution could be reached, and we are moving forward accordingly to protect the team's future and fulfill our commitments to the fans and partners. Now, that was part of the statement. Once Andrews took over as owner, previous debts and obligations were paid. The team was caught up on their bills. Again, looks like a good thing. All right. From the team aspect, yeah. So they fulfill all their obligations, including putting their non-refundable deposit down to the league. Here's our membership dues. We're going to be participating in the 25-26 season. Unfortunately, then this happens. So they have the money in the bank, basically, or in the league's hands, and it is contractually agreed and legally agreed upon that that payment is non-refundable. All right, so it's not like the league could just say, here's your money back. The good part of that is that basically allowed the team to file for dormancy and saying, we still want to be a member of this league. We still want to participate in the future. We obviously just can't this upcoming season. So, but here's our money. In good faith, we're saying we're going to be a part of the FPHL moving forward. So basically, they've held their place, and that the league accepted the terms dormancy. Said, okay. So the plan. What happens now? What does the league do? There are a few options. Now, plans A, B, and C, I guess you could say, is to find another arena in the greater Metro Detroit area to continue the team. They could still be called the Motor City Rockers. They would just be playing in another arena other than Big Boy. The problem is a lot of the mid-size arenas like Big Boy are already occupied. One arena has the U.S. national program. There's a couple other minor league teams or juniors teams that are playing in the area. Would they be willing to share the facility? That could be very, very tough. It's not ideal. It could work depending on situations between the two organizations and whatnot, but it's an uphill climb. All right, but that is plan A and B and C. All right, plan D. And this is something that the team really doesn't want to do, but they would do this before the last option, is file for another year of dormancy, 26-27 season, and then hopefully come back 27-28. Chances of that working out, very slim, very slim. The last plan is to relocate the franchise to a totally different area. I have ideas, but they're just my ideas. I don't know if they're on the radar of the organization, where they could still play somewhere else in Michigan, but it's not going to be in the greater metro area. But the problem is, and the team is holding to this, I understand what their thinking is, you've got to start from scratch with marketing and promotion and building a new fan base, basically. That's costly and time consuming and a lot of effort. The team would just rather obviously stay in a general area where people know, oh yeah, the Rockers, yeah, they were up in Fraser a couple years ago. So that's what the future looks like. It's a long shot, but a long shot is better than no shot. The fact that the team filed for dormancy says to me that they feel that they can get things together and find another place to play. And hopefully they can. But that's what happened in a nutshell and where we're at, and hopefully where we'll be in the future. Hopefully we will see the purple and black and white once again in the FPHL. All right, I've gone long, so I'm going to cut this off. I am Gary Ryan. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to hit like and subscribe. Follow me on Facebook and on the Flash Audio Network. Links for the Flash Audio Network are on my Facebook page. Thanks for watching, guys, and we will see you next week. Actually, Tuesday, news and notes. And there's a big piece of news I'm going to share with you.